All right, good evening. It is 6 o'clock. Welcome to the mayor and council meeting for March 14th. This evening we will have our invocation by Pastor Billy Kaler, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance from Sergeant Mike Bedekofer. Hope I said that correctly. And then if you gentlemen will hang around, I'd like to say a couple of words about you if I can. If everybody please rise. Pastor.
Bow your heads with me. Father God, we thank
You may be seated. Pastor Billy Kaler is a retired pastor who's kind enough to lead us in our invocation tonight. Thank you for being here, Pastor. He was the pastor at Rica Christian Church for 18 years. He and his wife Carol have been married for 38 years, and they have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. Thank you for being here tonight, sir. Officer Bedekofer, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Very close. Well, let's try to get it right. Bedekofer. All right. Sergeant Bedekofer is an experienced law enforcement professional with over 25 years in the field. He has held a range of command positions, including administration, operations, and tactical operations. He's a certified instructor in firearms, defense tactics, active shooter. Additionally, he holds an associate's in criminal justice and is currently working towards a bachelor's degree at Georgia Highlands College. In his off time, Sergeant Bedekofer serves on the board for the Good Neighbor Homeless Shelter in Bartow County, which assists unsheltered individuals and families achieve stable independence at home. He can be found with his wife Anna and his 3 daughters Abby, Isabel, and Ava, going broke at one of the following locations: travel, softball, or soccer, jiu-jitsu gyms, and he's excited and grateful to be serving the city of Villa Rica. Thank you for being here tonight. And I would say the person, give him a round of applause. I would say whoever wrote this up tonight wrote your name in here at least 4 more times, which I just skipped, and used a pronoun because I didn't want to get it wrong again. So thank you for your service here. All right, we're going to move into ceremonial presentations. And first up tonight, I'm going to go a little bit out of order. We will start with Ms. Shirley Healsman. I want to thank her for being here tonight. We wanted to recognize her for her time on the Planning and Zoning Commission. If I could have Ron come up for just a minute, say a few words and introduce Ms. Healsman, and then I'd like her to come up and we'll take a photo with her. Sure, either way, whatever works for you.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to.
But hold that mic up a little more.
Can you everybody hear me?
There you go.
All right,
Yes.
I can't hear myself up here. I'd like to take the time to celebrate and provide a certificate to one of our planning commission or ex-planning commission members who served on the commission for 1 year, Shirley Healsman.
No.
Come on up. Ms. Healsman served on the commission for 1 year last year on the commission. She's been a resident of Villa Rica now for how many years, Ms. Healsman? 80 years. Okay, very
Wonderful.
good.
80
Very
years.
good. And she came to us, actually, I believe it may have been, I don't know if it was a council meeting or not, but she did come to us and had an extreme interest in being a planning commission member or helping this in her terms, in her words. She said, I want to help the city wherever I can. And that's the type of can-do attitude that we love here in Villa Rica, and with all of our volunteers. We just had our volunteer dinner recently, actually, and all of our volunteers are very excellent. I loved your time on the commission, and we would hope that you would come back to us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Marksman, let's go down and take a photo with her. You want to go down and take a photo with her?
No, really? No disrespect.
So there's a little bit of a typo on the agenda. And Ms. Hillsman, thank you for your service. And we will have a certificate for you ready tomorrow, okay? We had a little bit of a typo on it. So come over here and let's get a picture. Right here. Let's do it right over here a little bit. Come over here. I can take pictures of these folks more often. This is the only time I'm taller than you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your service. All right. Next up, let's recognize our esteemed finance guru. If we could have Sarah come up and say a couple of words. This is a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for fiscal year 21. Will you make sure that mic is on?
Hold on. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Very good.
Yes, we wanted to recognize Jennifer and her staff, if you want to come up here and say a few words, for receiving the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. This is given by the the Government Finance Officers Association. This is a national association. So you submit your financials to them, and they have a panel that reviews them. They're looking for standards of excellence. When Jennifer and her team submit it, they have a very long checklist, pages and pages, of things that will be reviewed in the panel or by the panel. And so there's a lot of standards that they're trying to meet. One of them is a spirit of full disclosure. So anyway, I just wanted to commend Jennifer and her leadership for what they've done here. This is only the second time we've received it in the city. It was a long time coming. So I'll let her say a few words.
Oh, you all right? Thank you. I just wanted to say I appreciate my team. As I said this morning, I couldn't do it without my team of Louise, Katie, and Amanda. I think the support of the mayor and council, city manager, deputy city manager, and really all of the staff and the department directors during the year were always probably sometimes maybe pestering the departments about doing certain things or having to get things coded in the right line item. But it's only to make this process that we do at the end look prettier and more accurate. We also have our auditor here, Meredith Lipscomb, and they play a major role. Malden and Jenkins is very supportive of what we do. They help us and give us any guidance and answer any questions that we have regarding the whole audit process or anything that comes up during the year. So I like to thank them too, but especially my staff.
Wonderful. Thank you. Give her a round of applause. And then if you would invite introduce each of your team members, and we'll come up and take a photo.
Louise, she is the Assistant Finance Director, Louise Clark. And then Amanda Long is our accountant. And Katie is our Accounts Payable Clerk.
program through the Carl Benson Institute of Government. Sarah?
Yes. I'd like to recognize Teresa Campbell, our new city clerk. She took the position in October. So she was recognized in February at the conference for obtaining her Georgia Certified Clerk plaque. However, she completed this in September before she took the position in October. She had to complete 101 hours of various courses, whether that's meetings and minutes and retention, elections. She's done a bunch of stuff. So anyway, we just want to recognize her and honor her for becoming a certified clerk. So now she's moving on to the master clerk certification. So
All right, give her a round of applause for that. Well, this is the last one. What'd you say? What'd you say? Don't hold it up that high. I could have stayed up there. Okay. Congratulations, Rica. I may go back to just staying up here and doing these at a separate time. I'm going to say a couple of words though, and I know we have a special guest here who's going to talk with us about our audit, our financial and compliance audit summary. But I always try to take a moment to point this out because I'm not sure everybody realizes just how big of a job it is for the city clerk. And I said this when the previous clerk was here. They wear a lot of hats. We talk about multiple people here, who do wear a number of hats, but that city clerk job, it's almost as bad, I think, as being the city manager. But I don't know if it's quite that bad, but some days I think it probably is pretty close because that's a terrible role to play too. So I want to thank you for your service, and you're filling that job really, really well. And I know you got a trainee over here, and she's coming along too. So I'm excited about what's going on over there. So thank you and congratulations on that. All right, next up, the exciting and wonderful moment of audit summaries and compliances. I would like to welcome Ms. Meredith Lipsum. Come on up here. Pull that mic down just a little bit.
I don't know if I can live up to that
I'm sure you can.
that introduction. Good evening. My name is Meredith Lipson. I'm the partner in charge of the city's annual audit with Malden and Jenkins. We appreciate the opportunity to present the audit to you this evening. This is your June 30, 2022 audit. For some reason, it does take GFOA almost a year to award the certificate. For 2021, we fully expect you all to receive the certificate for 2022. It just may not get here for another 9-10 months.
Till 24?
So, 24.
Okay.
I believe Jennifer passed out to you all 2 documents. One is the actual annual comprehensive financial report. That's the thicker one. That's the financial statements.
So these books is what you're calling a document?
Correct. Correct. These novels. The other smaller document is what we refer to as an auditor's discussion and analysis, and it includes everything that we are required as auditors to communicate to you all under the standards that guide us, as well as some financial, just some summaries, some statistical information for the year that was just audited. And then we've also included just some accounting standards that are out there on the horizons that will have to be implemented in the coming years because those never seem to stop. What I thought I would do, since I kind of got a little bird in my ear that you all didn't really probably want to hear me talk for 30, 45 minutes on the financial report.
Of course we do.
The thicker the documents, the annual comprehensive annual financial report, is a lot of information. I know you just got it, so you need to have time to look through it. But let me just say, if you don't have time to go through the whole document, the most important thing to look at is the management discussion and analysis. It's towards the front of the document, right before the audit report. It begins on right after the audit report. It begins on page 5. This is a great summary of the financial activities for the city for the fiscal year 2022 year. It was written by management. It was not written by us. We do make sure the information is consistent with the audited financial statements, but it gives a great overview of the financial activity. With that being said, let's take a look at the smaller document, and I'll just provide you all kind of with a summary of the audit itself and some of the financial highlights. The first few pages of this auditor's discussion and analysis are just some information about our firm. If you're not already familiar with us, we do a significant amount of governmental work all over the Southeast. And we certainly appreciate the opportunity to work with you all on your finances. Page 5 is some information about the independent auditor's report. The financial statements are the responsibility of management. Our responsibility is to express an opinion based on our audit procedures, and we did issue an unmodified opinion. That's a clean opinion, the one that you want to receive. So. Again, no modifications to the audit report. Additionally, we had no findings and no comments as a result of our audit. So certainly, hats off to your finance department. They do an incredible job. I wish there was a Jennifer at every city and county government that I work with. She and her team do a fabulous job. Page 6 just gives you a little brief summary of what's included within the thicker document that you have, the actual annual report. It's a lot of information, goes far above and beyond what the state requires. It includes a lot of statistical data, 10-year trend data. It's really interesting to see how the city has grown over a 10-year period. That's in the back of that document. If you turn to page 9, I think the financial information that most everyone is most interested in is the general fund. That's really the heart and soul of the operations of the city, where most of the activities, most of the department activity runs through there. General fund revenues, as you can see on page 9, a breakdown of the various sources of general fund revenues. Of course, the largest revenue for you all is your property taxes, followed by sales taxes and franchise and other taxes. So significant part of your revenues are coming from the various taxes that you all receive. The following page, on page 10, presents the general fund expenditures by function. As with, I would say with 100% of the governments I work with, public safety is the majority of the expenditures of the government. With about $5.6 million for fiscal year 2022. Followed closely by your general government and public works. Page 11, as you can see, for each of the years, each of the past 4 years, the revenues and other financing sources have exceeded your expenditures and financing uses for the general fund, meaning your fund balance has been increasing for the past 4 years. 2018 was not a great year for many governments, and so there you will see that there were some the revenues did fall short of expenditures that year. But for the past 4 years, your revenues have exceeded expenditures, which has increased your fund balance. Page 12, this reflects the change in your fund balance, or the increase or decrease for each year for the past 6 years. As you can see, fiscal year 2022, your fund balance in the general fund increased just over $1 million. And the following page reflects the strength of the city's general fund for fiscal year, for the past 6 fiscal years. The blue line that you see there is expenditures. The darker gray line is your fund balance. At fiscal year 2022, your fund balance was $9.7 million, which will cover approximately 230 days or 7+ months of expenditures. That's a good, strong fund balance. And of course, that fund balance, has got to carry you not only through your regular expenditures, but also if there are unexpected things that come up, which there always are, if new projects are undertaken, for which there isn't sales tax funds or some other grant funding, your general fund will share in those costs. So you have to remember, while you all do have a good, strong fund balance, it is there to carry you all through not only your regular operations, but also any unexpected events that may occur. But again, a good, strong fund balance at September 30, 2022. Page 14 just mentions the fact that you all do have other funds outside the general fund. You have special revenue funds, capital project funds. All the money that flows in and out of those funds is restricted for particular purposes. Either it's sales tax money restricted for capital projects, or it's just some of your various other restricted funding that flows through. So none of your general operations are flowing through these special revenue and capital project funds. You also have 3 enterprise funds, water and sewer, solid waste, and stormwater. For all of these funds, the idea is that they operate like businesses. They take in charges for services, and the expenses are used to, the funds from the charges for services are used to carry on the operations of the individual funds. Net position for your business type activities did increase from $57.3 million to $63.3 million. A large portion of your net position in those funds is invested in capital assets, so it's not tangible money that can be spent. But you all have invested in those in the operations of these various business type activities. If you'll turn over to page 16, this is just a brief description of the various footnotes that are included within the financial statements. There's 16 different footnotes providing all kind of details about your cash, your debt, your receivables, capital assets, any risk management risks that are out there, your defined contribution plan, and so forth. We also issue, as mentioned on page 17, one compliance report. It's a report under government auditing standards. The report does not provide an opinion, but it provides kind of a form of negative assurance on the city's internal controls and compliance. Had we had any findings, had we noted any issues with internal controls or compliance, it would have been reported in that report. The following pages, I won't read through all of these for you all. As I mentioned earlier, this includes information that we as auditors are required to communicate to you all under the standards that we have to follow. These are things like the fact that there are estimates that are used in the accounting process. There's certain management judgment that is involved in the financial process. We had no disagreements with management. Everything that we needed was obtained almost immediately. As soon as we had a question, Jennifer and her staff had an answer for us. So, again, you're so fortunate to have the finance staff that you have. We had no audit adjustments that came out of the audit process, which is these days is really almost unheard of, among governments that we work with. But she has everything recorded, booked, accrued, as is needed. And again, we had no audit adjustments that came out of the audit process. The remainder of this document is, as I mentioned, provides a pretty extensive list of the Governmental Accounting Standard Board standards that are out there on the horizon to be adopted in the coming years. Some of them will apply to you all, some of them will not. But we just felt like it was important that you all be aware of the different standards that are out there and how they may or may not affect the city. In the very end of the document, we do mention the fact that we offer a variety of continuing education seminars, webinars for our clients. They're restricted just to our clients. continuing education with a variety of topics that we hope will help our clients to better understand and be better able to handle any of the new standards and the various issues that come up within governments. We also provide newsletters as we feel they're warranted, and we've got a list in here of the different topics that we've covered. And then finally, we include a little bit of information about our governmental advisory services. We have a pretty strong governmental advisory service team that does a lot of special projects for city, county governments as well as school districts. David Roberts, who heads up this group, has done projects all over the country for a variety of governmental entities. So if there are any special projects that you need, just be aware that that's something that we can provide. They are a totally different team than the audit team. They have to be for us to maintain independence. But certainly feel free to reach out if there's something that you think we can assist you all with. So, I know that was pretty quick. I'm sure y'all are okay with that. But if you have any questions, I'll be glad to address those at this time.
Okay. So first, did you just get this tonight as well? Do we have a copy that we can put online?
Yes.
We have that? Do we have it? Do we already have it? Yes. All right. I want to make that available immediately. It's probably a little bit confusing for those sitting here and those at home who can't see it because nothing was up at the same time, but I want to make sure we get that out there for the public, so we'll do that. All right, council, do you have any questions? We have a resident accountant here, so sometimes I look to see if they have any questions. But if they don't, then
Know that when they say it's a clean audit, I'm not asking any questions.
all right. Well,
All right. Well,
I
thank you
heard it
again
from
very
her.
much.
Thank
We
you very much.
appreciate it.
Thank you for being here. All right. More people are going to escape.
Poor Louise, she has to stay.
That's all they were here for, I'm sure. All right. Do we have she's going to get it? All right. So, council, you have before you the agenda. I don't think there are any changes. So I would entertain a motion to adopt this agenda.
So moved.
Have an adoption from motion from Mr. Carter to adopt the agenda as presented and a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right. We have an adopted agenda here. Do we have any names on there? Just one. All right. Okay, so we are going to have public comments now. We ask that you please keep your comments on a professional level. We will not accept comments that are considered by the chair to be of a personal attack on any individual or group of individuals. If you deviate from this protocol, you'll receive a warning from the chair. If you deviate a second time, you'll be asked to leave. Only one person speaking at a time, and please no comments from the audience. I'll also remind everyone that there is generally no back and forth here. This is your 3 minutes. We're going to put time up here, and first up on this big long list of names is Michael Young. You will come up and give us your name and address for the record. We will give you 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and
Yes, sir.
City Council members. Michael Young, 9634 Coastal Point Drive here in Villa Rica. My comment is about Councilman Carter's Edge Road discussion that we had at the work session. There are a number of roads in Villa Rica that people have trouble staying on their side of the road that have bad striping. The mayor mentioned Stockmar, which my favorite is Shoreline Parkway and Old Town Road. So once the LMIG money is totaled up and the SPLOST money earmarked for paving is totaled up and we do the prioritization, if some of these roads that people weave on are at the bottom of the list, maybe we could look at striping those. I'm sure that the public works employees and the police officers have their favorite roads that people don't stay in their own lanes in. So I'm sure that there's a lot of people that have comments on which ones need striping. And if they're at the bottom of the priority list, maybe we can consider that.
Yeah. Well, as always, very astute comments from Mr. Young. Seriously, that is that's important to look at that way. One of the reasons we talked about it the way we did is because when it comes to time to repave and typically repaving involves restriping, so we want to make sure that we don't get those out of order and out of whack. But there are places, and probably like Mr. Carter, I haven't been over there, but I'm going to take his word for it, that is a safety issue, and we need to address that. But I would also point out that Stockmar Road is also a safety issue, and that it could be looked at the same time. And I'm sure we all have a list. I don't mean to go in it. I just mean to suggest that if a road has to be repaved, and part of repaving is restriping, we want to make sure we don't throw good money after bad, and we're going to make sure that we do that here. Okay, that was the only name I had on the list. However, is there anybody here who would like to speak in public comments before I close out? I would like to recognize that Dr. Brooks is here tonight, the Carroll County board member, school board member, is with us tonight. Thank you for being here, Dr. Brooks. All right, anybody else? Last chance. All right. I'll close the public comments portion of the meeting, and we will move on to council updates. Are there any council members who would like to be recognized for an update? Ms. McPherson.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Carroll County government for assisting us on Punkintown Road. I don't know all the details behind this other than initially we had approved about $90,000 to pave a section of Punkintown Road because the whole road isn't going to be redesigned for a while. And that would, if you've driven it, I don't have to explain. You just know. Everybody was dodging the holes. And from the best of the information that I've received so far, Carroll County came in and helped us with that, something to do with rock. And it may not be as smooth as ever, but it is so vastly improved. So I just want to thank them for assisting us with that. I wouldn't be surprised if they did it at cost, or I think actually, was it 19,000? What was it? What did we? 1,800. What am I? I don't know what I got that confused with. $1,800. But we could have spent 90,000. Okay, well, hopefully it'll hold us. It's a big improvement. So that's all.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. I'll close council updates. Earlier today, in a rather long work session, we met to try to move as many items as we could onto the consent agenda. And so I'll just read off this little statement we have. The consent agenda is a single item that encompasses all things the city council would normally approve with little comment. Each of these items were discussed at the council work session, and it was the unanimous consensus of the governing body to place the following items on the consent agenda. Each of these items that I'll read off here, I'll then ask for a motion to approve this consent agenda. But I would say to anybody listening at home or anybody here that if you want more information concerning any of these items individually, go back and watch the work session. It was recorded earlier today. And just as a side note, for those who don't know, the work sessions are always broadcast live, just as these meetings are, and they're still available to watch later because they're recorded and archived both on Facebook and on YouTube. Is that the only places? Okay. All right. So these are the items, and when I'm finished, I'll ask for a motion to adopt this consent agenda, or I'll hear any objections. Item number 1, Georgia Conservancy Villa Rica Placemaking and Alleyway Activation Program. Consent number 2, Keep Carroll Beautiful request to use V-Plex. Consent number 3, Keep Carroll Beautiful sponsorship for East Recycling event. Consent number 4, Microsoft Surface Pros available to council members for purchase. Consent number 5, deed of property from city to Fuqua. Consent number 6, addendum to Civic Plus agreement and statement of work for ordinance supplementation. Consent number 7, cemetery ordinance revision. Consent number 8, agreement approving Three Rivers Regional Commission to conduct comprehensive planning activities on behalf of the city of Villa Rica. Consent number 9, V-Plex Pavilion. Consent number 10, AED machines for city buildings. Consent number 11, the North Wastewater Plant Gate Project. Consent number 12, Community Development Software Package. Consent number 13, Supervisor Training through Georgia Municipal Association. Consent number 14, Agreement for Entertainment Services. Consent number 15, modification design of Cleghorn Force Main and Gravity Sewer. Consent number 16, modification of design of Weatherstone Lift Station. Consent number 17, ductile iron pipe purchase. Consent number 18, engineering design of Maple Street Water Main upgrade. Consent number 19, fiscal year 23 budget amendments numbers 149 through 153. Are there any objections? If there are none, is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented?
Yes, so move.
Have a motion from Mr. Carter to adopt the consent agenda as presented, a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? That's unanimous. All right. Moving on to tab A, governing body. Item 1, approval of minutes from February the 7th, 2023. Council, you've had an opportunity to review these minutes. Are there any changes or modifications? If there are none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from February 7th, 2023. Have a motion from Ms. Marchman to approve the minutes from February the 7th, 2023. Is there a second?
Second.
A second from Mr. Carter. All in favor? All opposed? Oh, you did the second. I'm sorry. I'm getting. Did he really? He was whispering. It was soft.
Yeah.
All right. The second will be Mr. Montahan. All right. All in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Did everybody raise their hand? All right. Thank you, Ms. Clerk. All right. I think somebody's threw me off here. It's going to take me a minute. All right. Tab B. Community Development. Tracy Jarvis. It's going to be Ron. Number 1, RA-08-22, Brenda M. Matthews and Themis Asset Recovery LLC, proposed rezoning of 4 parcels on South Street. This item will have a public hearing. Let me get Ron to present it. Is the applicant here?
The applicant is here.
All right, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we have an application for a rezoning for 4 parcels, one located at 624 South Street, and 3 others that are that do not have an address. These are located on South Street and are currently zoned single-family urban R2. The request this evening is to move these 4 properties to a commercial medium-density C2 zone in order for the owner to reparcel these lots, combine them with other parcels for the hope of constructing a national sit-down chain restaurant. We took this through the Planning Commission. They recommended an approval of 4-0, and the staff also is recommending approval, being that the requested zoning would permit uses that are consistent with the surrounding area and would provide further growth of the Commerce Drive and Highway 61 corridor.
Okay, so it was approved by the Planning Commission 4-0. Were all members present, or was there a member absent?
There was a member absent. It was Doug Lang.
Okay, so all present voted in favor of this. Is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Council, do you have any questions for Ron before we do a public hearing or hear from the applicant? All right. Would the applicant like to speak?
That is not Brenda.
That's not Brenda.
She couldn't make it today. Okay, I'm Jeff Matthews, 215 West Bankhead Highway in Villa Rica, Georgia, and it's a beautiful day in Villa Rica, Georgia, as it always is. And I'll be brief on this because I think it's pretty much self-explanatory, but we have been committed to this piece of property since 1985. And I was driving a 1983 Toyota pickup truck then, and that's how I keep up with time, is what I was driving at the time when we first acquired the eastern portion of this. It was part of the Shorty Bagwell estate, and he had a pretty good piece of property that includes where the Ingalls and part of where the BP station and BB&T Bank is. But we join a neighborhood that was constructed back in the cities. It's sort of a transitional neighborhood that I think will either wind up either as commercial or educational because it sandwiches in between there and the Villa Rica High School complex. But population growth in this intervening 38 years has caught up with Villa Rica. And in so doing, we have gotten the attention of some national major restaurant chains, and they have some pretty stringent requirements as far as what they will do on a piece of property. They usually come in with a checklist that's longer than a CVS receipt, and they are going to spend a lot of money, so they want to be sure that it's going to be successful. And they have to have a lot of parking. And when we first started to lay out one of these on the eastern section, it became apparent that some of the parking would have to get over onto some of the western component over there. And so what we have decided at this time, we feel like it's time to go ahead and do basically a composite, or put those properties together, which will improve the interparcel access. We want to build a road. I don't know, we had a map of this thing, a site plan, for lack of a better word. But we've done a lot of engineering work on it, and we feel like by taking the road between Chick-fil-A and Racetrack through.
Give me just a second. Just, Teresa, will you try to pull that map up for us? It should be in the packet. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay. We feel like pulling that road through there, and then when the school gets Meadowlark opened up, then it will help traffic out in that area. We just know that if you've got another way out, it just always helps. So we just feel like that now's the time, and I'd just like to ask that y'all back up the planning and zoning's recommendation. I'll be glad to try to answer any questions you might have. You can see, if you can slide it on down, you see that, see that road going through. Flip it one time if you can. Sort of the way the world's running. All right, yeah, there is, you can see Chick-fil-A down in that lower end. All right, and that's going to be a pretty big detention pond. I don't know if y'all have ever heard that song that Mahalia Jackson sang. It says, "For every drop of rain that falls, a flower grows." Well, I don't know about that, but I know we've done enough engineering out there. For every drop of rain that falls, we know where it's going to be detained, because that's a pretty good sized pond. But if y'all have any questions, be glad to try to answer them.
All right. Council, do you have any questions for Jeff before we have a public hearing?
Yeah, I mean,
All right, Mr. Montague.
so just so I can kind of, this parcel's, I mean, I know the detention
Is your
pond
mic
is,
on?
I'm sorry, I know the detention pond is pretty significantly sized, but it just looks like you could probably put more than one national chain sit-down restaurant. I mean, is there, in this kind of large parcel, the way it's laid out, do you anticipate future development as well, Jeff?
I would hope so.
Okay. All right. That's why I was just trying to figure out the potential site plan, lay of the land of how it would access. Because where do you anticipate the one that you're currently courting to be located at?
If you slide
Teresa,
it down just
pull
a little
that down
bit.
a little bit.
The other way.
Well, it's upside down.
All right, right there. You see where Dunkin' Donuts is,
Uh-huh.
where we built the wall,
Right.
and we built the wall because we're going to have to fill that site. Again, one of those checklist items is those folks even have a floor flatness ratio study done before they'll accept a building. So
Okay.
it's a pretty involved process. But yes, sir, if we have another opportunity, we certainly would like to take advantage of it.
Okay, so it is kind of figured where I think everybody is thinking about right now because they've seen that wall go up and all that work you've done over there. So where does the future private drive, is it going to just connect South Street and what's that, Commerce Drive right there?
Mm-hmm. Well, come on up a little bit. I'm sorry, the other way. And the western terminus of it over to South Street might change a little bit, but if you look at where it says future private drive that's upside down, just south of that, or well, it's actually north of it, that is the proposed new fire station site that's
Okay.
owned by the county.
That would be
right there, correct.
Okay. I guess that explains, that kind of explains, because I didn't really understand the connection between the private drive and the parcel that you built the wall on, so. But I
Right.
see, I see what's going on now. Okay.
All right, good deal.
Thank you, sir.
All right, anybody else? He took off, didn't he? He said he'd done his job. All right, I'm going to open this up for a public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak for or against this item? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I'll revert back to staff. Counselor, are there any questions for staff? If there are none, I'll entertain a motion.
Okay. I move to approve the rezoning request from Brenda M. Matthews and Themis, Asset Recovery LLC of Villa Rica, Georgia for rezoning from R2 to C2 as outlined by the staff.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carter to approve the rezoning request from Brenda M. Matthews and Themis Asset Recovery LLC of Villa Rica, Georgia for a rezoning from R2 to C2 as outlined by staff, and a second from Ms. McPherson. This is getting harder. Is there any further discussion? All in favor? All right, that's unanimous.
Thank you, everyone.
Go out there and
Have
do
a great
something
evening.
good. I know you will. All right, C1. Ms. Taylor is back. Selection of firm for classification and compensation studies. So I saw that after our work session, the score sheet was sent out. Did everybody get a copy of that or have a chance to look at it that wanted to? I'll let you just briefly introduce this again, and then we'll see if there are any questions.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am here to present the RFP for a compensation study and the selection of the consultant, which is PayPoint HR. Just to briefly state that we had 4 bids that were submitted, and they were scored on the following: technical ability, past performance, cost, and background experience. Based on the bids, and also based on the fact that the consultant that was selected, they were very employee driven. They valued the input of our employees. We selected PayPoint HR. And the bid tabulation was that PayPoint HR received a score of 480, and the others Bolton received 438. We had McGrath receive 391, and Archer received 461.
All right. Council, do you have any questions for Lena? All right. If there are none, I will entertain a motion. Is anybody?
I move to approve PayPoint HR as the consultants for our compensation study with a cost not to exceed $35,000.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Montahan to approve PayPoint HR as the consultants for our compensation study with the cost not to exceed $35,000, and a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, that's unanimous.
Okay,
Thank you. All right, moving on. D1, Water and Sewer Ordinance Revision. There's also a public hearing on this item tonight. So, John, if you would come up and briefly introduce this item again.
Good evening. This is a proposed revision to the pre-treatment service charges section of our sewer use ordinance, sections 2178B through 2178D. This is to comply primarily with EPD regulations that we have. All holders of an industrial pre-treatment program, which we are required by the state to act on behalf of the state with our industrial users that fall into that category. That includes everything from issuing of permits, regular site inspections, receiving and analyzing monthly reports, follow up on those reports, issuances of non-compliance documentation, Just as EPD does with us, we're required to do that with these industrial users. EPD conducted an inspection of us last fall relative to the industrial pretreatment program and identified a few things we need to shore up a little bit. In one case was the reduction of the permit limits to match our local limits that are in our ordinance, which is the graph we see now. That is a requirement of EPD, so one of these changes would meet that EPD requirement. In this case, there's a couple of constituents that were permitted at 1,500 milligrams per liter, not to get into weeds, but our local limits are only 250. So we need to issue new permits that lower them to 250 per our state requirements. So the ordinance is in part to cover that. Another part of the ordinance is the cost factor that we see in front of us for the surcharges. Surcharges were last analyzed, and that cost factor of $1.09 per pound of constituent was created in 2018. There has been no increase in surcharges to the industry since then. Meanwhile, our chemical costs have gone up about 38%, the chemicals that we use to treat this. Now, we did a weighted analysis, and we landed on 35.7%, 35.9%. So we are requesting an increase of 35% in surcharges. Now, the important thing here, though, is the surcharges that would be assessed to the industrial users that are part of this program would only be for those concentrations that exceed their permit. So as long as these industrial users are within their permit that we issue them, there are no surcharges assessed. Surcharges are only to counter our additional expenses that we incur to cover the additional constituent that comes to the treatment facilities. That's the point of the surcharges. So we enacted the surcharges to compensate for our increased expenses in treating what we're receiving just from the industries that fall into this category. So, and the other revision, as we can see, is to match the local limits, is the inclusion of the items on the proposed schedule. Again, not to get into the weeds, but we have TKN, phosphorus, oil and grease, and ammonia nitrogen. So we're looking to include those as the first three are part of our local limits, but they're not on the permits that we currently have issued. So I'm trying to tie the permits with the local limits to match what EPD is asking us to do.
Okay. All right, so we're going to have a public hearing on this in just a minute. So let me, before I get too far in, because I may not need to, let me see if council has any questions for you right now.
I have a question,
All right,
just
Mr.
from
Montahan.
understanding. So, John, I mean, just looking, do we have, let me just use, for example, the total suspended solids.
Mm-hmm.
I guess currently we don't have an ordinance that allows them to go above the 250. Is that what I understand?
No, currently their permits are written that they are allowed to get up to 1,500, although we surcharge for anything over 250.
I see.
Our local limit is 250.
Okay.
So EPD has written us a letter stating that we need to lower those to the local limits, which in this case would be 250.
So then we have permits out there that authorize up to 1,500, but the limitation is 250 currently. Is that correct?
Correct.
So does that, by us, I guess this would be retroactive. So if you currently have a permit, does the permit expire and does it have to get renewed? I mean, how do we enforce a new limitation?
Upon approval of this, we would issue notice to the industrial users that we have issued permits to, giving them likely 90 days notice that we'll be issuing them new permits. And then when we issue them the new permits, they will have the revised limits on those new permits. There is a period of time which we allow them to meet. There's no penalty after the fact. They are held to the 1,500 until we issue them the new permit.
Do
Their limit is 1,500.
we know if any of the users, I guess maybe the proper word is actually discharge at the 1,500 or above the 250? I mean,
On occasion, yes.
okay.
On occasion, they're between the 250 and the 1500. In that case, we issue the surcharge, but they're not in violation of the permit. EPD has asked us to reduce the permit limits to meet our local limits.
Okay. I mean, obviously, if EPD is requiring it, I assume that we're allowed to do that, because I would imagine that if I'm a permit holder, then I have some sort of, authorization, and then you come in and you change it on me, then I could have an issue there.
Yeah, again, I think the process, looking through the EPD requirements and what we do as permit holders from EPD, they issue us notice that they're going to revise our permit. We have the opportunity to respond and essentially state our case of why we believe we should be where we're at today. And then we have some communication, some dialogue between us and EPD. And then eventually the permits get issued. It's a little different in that our window is, because our permits are what they are for municipal, we have up to, it's anywhere from 6 to 12 months. In fact, we have a permit coming up for renewal next February we just got notified on. But this is our time to respond with what they are telling us our permit limits are going to be. With industrial users, that window's a little smaller. But so, if it's 60 days, my preference would probably give them 90 days just to give them a little extra runway to get where they need to be. But the majority of the time, I would say, in this case, they're under the 250 regardless.
Okay.
Sometimes they're significantly under the 250.
Okay.
So we don't believe it's much of an impact on the industries. Lowering it from 1,500 to 250 isn't that much of an impact to them, although the numbers look like it. They may range for several months. They could be between 5 and 20. And then if there's a plant upset, they could be at 1,200.
So it's an occasional instance.
Yes, in the majority of cases, it's an occasional incident. There are times where there is an ongoing issue, and that's where we need to address it. And that's also why we want to address the cost factors, because that ongoing issue, we're paying today's chemical costs, and we're only charging chemical costs based on 2018.
Okay.
If that helps.
Yes, thank you.
Anybody else? All right, Ms. McPherson.
We're all experts on this up here, right? But it actually did help with your further explanation this evening. So my main concern, because part of it is EPD requires it, well, then we got to do it. I mean, I guess we can argue back, but there's some things that we just mandatorily need to do. But the thing that caught my eye is just that the businesses are notified, that they know what's coming, that they expect it. And when there's something of 35% increase, right, little bells go off. Oh, that's a lot for a business. But you did say that that only applies to those who exceed their permit. Now, is that what you said? It tends to be more occasional?
Yes, it tends to be more occasional. Again, there are times where there may be one facility that we have a little bit of an ongoing issue with.
Okay.
But it is occasional, and provided they're within their permit limit, it's a non-issue.
Okay, so that was my main concern, being my vast knowledge in this topic. That's why we have you, right? Is that the business owners are informed.
Yes, we would give them plenty of notice that we're issuing new permits.
Giving some time to adjust to get ready for those new permits and everything.
And those permits are renewed regularly, so they're issued new permits every few years or so. Whether some are 3 or some are 4, they're issued new permits consistently. So they've been issued new permits for the entirety that they've held a permit, just as we are.
Yeah, and I realize with our costs going up, we have to adjust with that.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, thanks, John.
You're welcome.
All right, anybody else? Mr. Carter.
It says all persons discharge industrial waste. This is actually, we're talking about the industries and all around the city.
This is only for the industries that we have issued an industrial pre-treatment permit to.
Okay, do you go out and check their discharges on a regular basis? I mean, how do you know when they're exceeding it?
Yes. They are required to submit monthly reports. We review and analyze those reports. We respond accordingly, whether it's a non-issue or if there's non-compliance, we'll send them a non-compliance letter, just as we're provided one if we're out of permit with the state. And then we do follow-up with them, and we do site inspections. And, in my conversation with EPD and their inspection of us, we probably need to ramp that up a little bit and do a little more with them just to ensure, just so EPD has a higher comfort level of the industrial users. Now today, I can say as of today, we have 3 industries that hold the permit. So it depends on the type of industry that it is that requires a pre-treatment program or not.
Okay.
Not all industries require pre-treatment.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Okay, let me do a public hearing on this. Is there anybody here who would like to speak for or against this sewer ordinance revision? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. We'll come back to staff. So oftentimes I listen to the discussion back and forth, and I wonder if it's necessary to go into any further detail, to get any further into the weeds. I don't feel like it is tonight. I would just say this, that when we look at these industries, what can happen, and I'm not going to point out any industry, and I'm not going to point out whether or not this is what we see here, but in certain industries, they're required to have a pre-treatment program. So we're talking about 2 different things. We're talking about lining our own permits up with what our requirements already are. And the difference there is whether or not they're in violation. It doesn't change whether or not they have to pay these surcharge fees, because once they're over the limits, they have to pay those anyway. But the issue is that sometimes it's cheaper for a business to not comply and just pay the additional fees than it is to actually comply. And the problem with that, amongst the obvious, more than just the obvious, is that we still have to treat this discharge once we get it, which becomes incredibly costly to our water and sewer system. It felt like to me that everybody here was getting that, so I don't feel like I need to go any further in it. But there's a 2-pronged deal here. We're trying to line up the permits with what our requirements already are, and we're also trying to do some cost recovery for what it cost us to treat when the decision is made at the business level to just not treat to bring into compliance because it's too costly over there. It's cheaper to just pay the surcharges. Okay, are there any further questions for John? I'll entertain a motion.
Okay, I move to approve the proposed revision to sewer use ordinance section 21-78.
Second.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carter to approve the proposed revision to sewer use ordinance section 21-78, and a second from Mr. Momtahan. All in favor? All right, that is unanimous. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Hallman, financial update, January 2023. Good evening.
Okay, good
Go ahead.
evening. Pull it up. Here we go. This is as of January 31st of 2023. We'll talk about cash first. Total cash for the month ending of January 31st is $35.7 million, up from $31.5 million same time period last year. $10.5 million is in the general fund. Water and sewer fund has $3.7. Sanitation solid waste $154,000. The Mirror Lake connector, that's based upon the Fuquay development agreement, has just under $7 million. And then you have your 2015, 16, and 2021 SPLOST accounts, which have roughly around $10 million, a little over $10 million. As far as our residential permits and taps, we've had 12 building permits totaling just under 30,000, 28 water taps, and 26 sewer taps. Local option sales tax is still coming in strong. This is an 18% increase in the Carroll County sales tax. We received $226,000 compared to $192,000 in January of 2022. And Douglas County had a 7% increase, bringing in $180,000 versus $169,000 in 2022. Property taxes. You can see for Carroll County, we've collected 96% of what we budgeted as of the end of January, and for Douglas, we've collected 97%. So in total, we've collected over $5 million. So we have about $200,000 or a little less, $180,000 left to collect. Our water and sewer is a business activity enterprise fund. Our revenue is less than it was last year by about $210,000. That's primarily due to, or that is due to the water and sewer taps. We've only brought in $146,000 compared to $558,000 January of last year. Our expenditures are up as well. Close to $4 million compared to the $3.7 million last year. So right now our net loss is around $813,000. The other enterprise fund that we have is the sanitation and solid waste. Our revenue has increased compared to last year, but so have our expenditures. So we're about at the same as we were last year, with our net income being almost $21,000. Our self-funded insurance fund for our health care is doing very well. Our bank balance at the end of January was $1,467,000. Contributions have totaled so far $768,000, and that is both employer and employee contributions. And our administration of the plan, as well as our claims paid, has totaled $555,000. So far, our savings, meaning that our contributions into the plan, have exceeded our expenses by $213,000. That is it.
All right, very good. That thing continues to do well, doesn't it? The
Yes.
self-funded insurance plan. All right, council, do you have any questions for Jennifer? Anybody? All right, thank you very much. All right, I got Georgia Cities Week on here again. Just more advertising? Okay. I couldn't remember if we were doing anything different. Well, I'll say to Madison that I think she did a great job on this plan. I like it.
Yes, agreed.
All right, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we discussed this morning. I'll be brief, but GMA, Georgia Municipal Association, has Georgia Cities Week. This year it is April 23rd through 29th. And so we have a collection of staff members who have been working for a while now to put together some offerings to get the community involved, get them aware of what the city does. So we will be appreciating our citizens all week through various events. Monday, we plan on having a recreation event, maybe a touch a truck, maybe some class previews. Tuesday, the mayor is going to read to some kids at the library. And Wednesday, we are hoping to have a special called meeting and inviting elementary age children to come and witness what y'all do, but I'm asking the council to vote on something fun, Villa Rica ice cream flavor or something. Thursday, the police department is doing Coffee with a Cop, and then they're doing a recruiting event called Donut Dash, where they're going to give folks who are interested in looking at employment in the police field to come race them or race the appropriate time on their PT course at Powell Park. And then that afternoon, we will have a public input meeting at the library. Friday is Arbor Day, and so Wesley at Pine Mountain Gold Museum has a plan for planting a tree. He has acquired a bunch of different types of trees, or will acquire, and so he's inviting the community to come help plant a tree. And then Saturday, we're going to wrap it up with the Jazz Festival at the Mill.
So now, the police department's doing the Donut Dash?
I don't think they're doing it.
Do you let her come up with this on her own?
They're hosting it.
We are
They're hosting the
It's a
Donut Dash,
recruiting
so they won't
event.
be eating any of them. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank y'all.
Very good.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure. Ms. McPherson.
It's not exact to this, but it is. Where is it? The public input meeting.
Yes.
Have we received the dates on when all those are? Because I don't seem to think I have those on my calendar.
We put the dates out on Facebook Monday. I can send the council a note with the dates lined out. They are at various times. It's 5 meetings over 6 weeks, various times and days of the week, various locations around town. Again, trying to attract cast a wide net and bring as many citizens as we can as possible. So I'll
Okay,
send that
great.
to you.
Yeah, if we can get it, I can get it on the calendar, and then I can send it out to the people I have emails for. Okay.
I got,
Let's make sure Ken puts it in. All right, Mr. Carter.
what is the Donut Dash? I gotta know.
It was a fun name we came up with, but it's a recruiting event. We talked about it a few months ago, but now is the time we're actually going to do it. So we're going to open up kind of an open recruiting event. If anybody wants to come and try out the police PT course or obstacle course, I guess they have to run it within a certain amount of time. So basically challenging anybody who wants to come run the course like the cops do. And if they make it, then maybe we'll talk.
You get a donut?
Get a donut.
They should.
Chasing a donut. All right, anybody else?
Yeah,
After the
yeah.
run. That
So
makes
you're
more
not
sense.
sick.
All right, anybody else? All right, thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
All right, Tom, G1, final approval of a consulting firm for the North Side Downtown Streetscape Project, design and engineering phase.
All right, so we are in the midst of LCI. Well, not really in the midst because LCI is going to take 10 years, but there's 3 phases to an LCI project. So we've completed the first one, which is the study. In rough numbers, that's a $100,000 grant. And the purpose of the study is to produce ideas for what you would want to do in your streetscape project. So LCI is a pro-pedestrian, pro-bicycle, sort of anti-vehicle kind of approach to urban design. So what they're trying to get us to do is to make our downtown more walkable. So the second phase, rough numbers, $1.5 million, is design or engineering, and that's when some poor engineering firm comes in here and tries to figure out how to actually do what the study suggested. So it's going to take the ideas from the idea guys and try to make it into actual engineering plans. Then the third phase will be an implementation grant, which can literally be millions and millions and millions of dollars. It's a reimbursement grant, and it takes forever to actually do. I've never seen one of these done in less than 10 years. But we've been to places that have implemented these, and they're always fantastic compared to what was there, originally. So where we are now is we've done the study phase, and we've gone back to ARC, and they've given us $1 million something, $1.4 million and a quarter or something total, I think, to $1.430 million to do this engineering piece. And so we put this out as an RFQ. So this is not price based. What we were looking for is quality. Have you done it? How many times have you done it? Where have you done it? Did we like what you did? Have we worked with you before? That was sort of what we were looking at. So Bobby and Chris and I did the review of the 4, and you can see who the guys are. So Keck and Wood is the company that did the North Bypass design. Thomas and Hutton, we don't really know, but HRC is Hughes Ray, right? So they had a local partner in their bid. Falcon, we know, they've done several things for us and are doing several. They did Connors Road Park, and they're doing the Mirror Lake Connector. And then the other one is Pond, who did our transportation study, partnered with Tool, who is the partner of the MKSK, who did the LCI study phase, right? So what Pond and Thomas Hutton have done is they've tried to partner with a local presence, right? Somebody that we had a relationship with to sort of elevate their proposal. But at the end of all that, Chris and Bobby and I are recommending that we use Keck and Wood because of their experience. They're a really big firm, but they have a lot of experience with this specific thing, which is going into a completely difficult railroad, highway, downtown, and making something really attractive out of it. And so the other benefit to me is that the person that would lead the Keck and Wood team is the guy that's leading the Keck and Wood North Bypass project. So I have like a couple of 3 years of experience with this guy already, which is a real asset to me. Personally, I love Falcon, right? Y'all know that. I've worked with them ever since my Fairburn days, but they don't have a ton of this with places that I know that I like. So, you know, otherwise I think I would have recommended them or pushed more for them, but I have a lot of confidence in Keck and Wood, even though they're in Duluth, which is not convenient to us, but Falcon's in Henry County. So is that better? It's not significantly different. And Tool is in Atlanta and Pond is in Atlanta. So anyway, that's the recommendation. And so the next step to this would be, if you're okay with Keck and Wood, then we're going to go back to them and we're going to try to hammer out a contract. So this is sort of backwards from anything else we do. The money got decided on the front end, and then we decide who instead of picking who and then them bidding a price. And so this could take a minute to get a contract with them. But anyway, so that's the recommendation. If you want to talk about, like if you've got some other experience with these other three and you want to push for one of them, then we need to talk about it tonight.
In 6 years of working with you, I've never heard you love anything.
Yeah.
Well, I love the guys at Falcon.
And that was a strong word to hear come out of your mouth. I mean, I don't even think you like much beyond, well, you love your daughters, but much beyond some sports that you tell me about almost every day. Anyway, that grabbed me when you said, I love them.
He didn't sound too enthused about this to start. When he was like, his first 5 sentences were,
That's how he starts everything.
I'm just not I think I have a pretty realistic idea of what an LCI project is. I may not live that long.
Well,
right? I mean, this is just a really difficult, but it's great free money.
Well, and the point I would make, I wrote down, is that it may take 10 years. It may take longer. But we have to begin somewhere. Everything has to begin. And the key to this is walkable downtown. I mean, that's going to make all the difference. And we have to plan on this stuff early. They should have planned it earlier. But we can't keep sitting here talking about what should have been done. It's our job to do it now. Okay, does anybody have any questions for Tom? All right, Ms. McPherson.
I used to think 10 years was a long time to get things done until I came to Villa Rica. How many things it just seems, it's slow because we got a lot to fix. But on a positive side, you started, I just want to flip one of the things you said about anti-car. Okay, I'm not anti-car or anti-vehicle, but when you go to a downtown or a historic district of any community, you want to walk. You don't want to try to park and find a place and then move 200 yards and park again. So, and you want to be able to walk it safely. So that's the emphasis behind the LCI. And hopefully we'll have some golf carts coming down a road over here before too long that'll be able to come down and park and walk around too.
I think that's right. All right, anybody else? All right, who would like to be recognized for a motion?
I'll take it.
All right, Mr. Carter.
I move to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement and contract necessary to engage Keck and Wood as the design and engineering consultant for the North Side Downtown Streetscape Project.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Carter. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mr. Montahan. All in favor? All right, that is unanimous. All right, Tom, let's move on to G2, easement request from Georgia Power.
All right, Georgia Power has evidently embarked on an easement acquisition program. I don't know how wide it is, but it's big. And they have reached out to us and asked us to give them, for a fee, 7 different easements underneath power lines that are in our right-of-way. They've offered us $70 a linear foot for those easements, and what they're going to do is clear cut them. And they will be their easement forever. And as I say in the cover sheet, I'm sympathetic to what they're doing, but we can do that because if we give up these easements, their treatment of the easement is going to be purely one-dimensional. It's not going to be aesthetic. It's not going to be anything except keeping limbs out of the power line. So I don't recommend that we do it as far as the easements go. But I do recommend that we go in and we make our own decisions about what to do with the vegetation that is in these right-of-ways, because they're not making it up. One of them is really severe. So the really bad one is across the street from City Hall in the park. There are 4 big pine trees right in the corner of Tanyard and 78. So when I look out of my window, it's the first thing I see in the park. And they really are a risk to the power company, because if any of the 4 of them do anything in an ice event, that power line on 78 is toast.
Well, it impacts us too.
And it's not going to be toast for a minute, right? I mean, we're talking about a 18-inch or bigger tree that's going to take out the power line and 78. So I get that. And it's going to be expensive for us to deal with those, because taking down a tree that size is thousands of dollars. But I would rather us approach it that way. I'd rather us just be a good customer and go, clear things where we're near a power line so that there's no danger of something falling in it. But I don't want to give up control. So that's my recommendation.
A little bit. I want to see if there are any questions. I guess I get the control thing, and there's a number of areas where we want to do that. But what about just requiring them to maintain the property?
Sort of like us and GDOT.
You think it'd be that? Of course, most of the time we're able to work something out. It just takes forever to get it done. But
I've never done that anywhere I've been, so I don't know. But we could look into it.
I mean, it's just a thought, because we have enough to take care of.
Yeah.
But if we also have to turn around and fight about getting someone else to take care of it, we probably are better off just doing it ourselves. I mean, just sort of thinking out loud. Is there anybody who's got any questions on this? Ms. McPherson?
So is it mainly the aesthetics? We don't want them to do it because they're just going to cut things. Well, I've seen the way they used to do things even down hurricane season, Florida, middle of the trees. I mean, there was some wacky looking stuff because they had one goal, clear the line. So are we going, can they still do part of it?
I think that's sort of where the mayor's thinking is to get them to do some maintenance.
I mean,
And if they
I don't know if that's how soon do they need how soon do they need this? Is this just something we're brought up?
With this other places? I don't know.
I have
don't know
not,
about
but
the deadline.
we may be able to talk to them and give them a license to cut some trees without actually giving them an easement.
I'm concerned that we put ourselves in the situation of having to maintain it for the safety or, use of those power lines, all just because we want to have control over the aesthetics.
We just need to plant the right kind of tree.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to need to cut whatever they're going to need to cut.
Well, I'll give you, for instance, something that happened that didn't help my attitude about this. And so they've reached out to the school system about this.
Okay.
And one of the places that they've reached out to them is a power line on top of a row of crepe myrtles. And one, it would take forever for the crepe myrtle to get tall enough to reach the power line. And two, it's in a landscape buffer. So we require it. Right? But if they get the easement, they're not under a requirement to maintain a landscape buffer. You see what I'm saying? That one-dimensional thinking is not, we're not going to be happy with that.
Okay. So in the easement document, you can obviously put anything you want to in there. It doesn't mean they'll sign it, but or continue to purchase it. I don't know. I feel like I might want to chew on this just a little bit more.
Okay,
Maybe
I'm good with that.
Yeah, we can talk with them some more to see if we might be able to strike a deal with them.
We have a really good relationship with the local guys that we work with every day.
Yeah, and I
Really
think
good.
just in preserving that too, maybe give a little more thought and kind of about how we could work together on this before we just simply
Yeah,
say no.
The easements as written right now give them absolute full control over it.
And I'm assuming they wrote them.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you don't mind, does anybody feel strongly about this tonight? All right, let's table this. Can I get a motion to table this to the next meeting, which is what, April?
Motion to table to the April meeting.
All right, I have a motion from Mr. Mompton to table. I have a second from Ms. Marchman. All in favor? All right, we'll table that to the next one. All right, let's go to G3, agreement with Douglas County Water Authority. Tom?
You have before you a short-term water purchase agreement with Douglas County. The purpose of this agreement is to enable us to buy at a reasonable rate 150,000 gallons a day so that we can exercise the newly renovated Connors Road booster pump station. So what that means is that we have a connection with Douglas County out on Connors, and we can pump from their system to our system, but we haven't done that since 2008, which is the infamous contract that we got into when we did the annexation deal. So that pump station went bad over time because it wasn't getting used. And so we basically have completely rebuilt it. Y'all have approved pumps and a new control panel, and we've redone SCADA and just all the valves. I mean, we basically redone the whole thing. And we now have it engineered so that it will fill the Mirror Lake tank, which it wouldn't do in its former condition. And so I don't want it to go fallow again, right? I want to do something with it. And so we've put this on Judd Turner to go negotiate something with Gil Soraus at Douglas County, and he finally got this document. So this is our recommendation. 150,000 gallons a day. It's take or pay. So we're going to pay for it if we don't use it. So we're going to have to pull it every day, but the rate's okay. It's only for 2 years, which is the length of time we have until our contract with Carroll County expires. And by that point, we're going to have to do something else. We're either going to have a new contract with Carroll, a new contract with Douglas, both, or something else. I don't know. So.
All right. Any questions? Tom? Mr. Carter?
Yeah, so the contract says we'd be paying $4.19 a thousand.
Minus the credit.
How much are the credits?
So the credit is going to be calculated based on how much water they save. So right now, they have this big infrastructure that they built back in the 2000s to service us, and then in 2008 they quit using it. Right? So when we quit buying from them, now they have a similar situation to what we have with the pump station. is they got a 12-inch line and a big water tank, and we're not drawing anything from it. So they literally have to dump water on the ground every day to keep the pipes, the water in the pipe fresh. Does that make sense? And so they're going to keep up with how much that decreases and give us credit for that because it's not costing them anything. So it should get it in the down below $3 a thousand.
Is that the flushing credit referred to? Okay. 33,000 gallons per day.
How much are we paying Carroll County?
272.
246. I don't know. Is it 261 now?
About $2.50 a thousand.
Yeah, maybe 261. Sarah thinks. So we're paying them that old 20-year contract with a CPI increase every year. That's not been a lot. It was more this year, but it started out, I think, at $1.67 a thousand, and it's only $2 and something now. So,
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Who would like to be recognized for a motion? Nobody has it. Well, let me say this while somebody pulls it up. I mean, this is something that we need to do because we need to start this relationship. They already are dumping this water. This is not an unreasonable rate. We may find that we can use more of it. So,
I got it.
Mr. Carter, you got it?
Yep. I move to authorize the mayor to execute a short-term water purchase agreement with the Douglasville, Douglas County Water and Sewer Authority.
All right,
Second.
have a motion from Mr. Carter, and a second from Ms. McPherson. All in favor? Did you do it again? I wonder if I'm going deaf in this year. I apologize because
That's why you put me over here on your deaf side.
But anyway, we'll do it the way I called it because it's what I hear.
Yeah.
That sounds like she's supporting that we didn't hear it down here.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor? All right, that's unanimous. Okay, Tom, let's move on to G4, agreement with Norfolk Southern for engineering services for the Highway 78 downtown pedestrian crossing.
okay, so we are working to put in a pedestrian crossing on 78 that would include a switchback stairway ramp from 78 up to the level of the railroad track so that you can walk safely from the south side, the Cinema Tavern, Chat and Chew side of downtown, across the street and over the railroad, and be able to park on that north side. And we're far enough into the process now that we've got a lot of the preliminary stuff through GDOT, and now we're embarking on the Norfolk Southern part because this is all in there right away. And they have a minimum review fee of $20,000 for a project like this. So we have to agree to pay them $20,000 to review the design before we can proceed.
Okay. Give me just a minute. All right, so let me recognize Ms. McPherson. Go ahead.
Okay, this one caught me by surprise that I was promoting this, because I looked in that I've asked staff to develop a joint agreement with Georgia GDOT for a crossing. Actually, what I had been working on and promoting was the flashing signs to get people across the street there at Candler to get to that parking, the parallel parking there, and also one over by Hickstown, getting people across Main Street where there is a crosswalk, but with the trucks. However, I'd hate to see us do this tonight. I called Chris while he was on his way to Cartersville. I'm showing up there tomorrow for that, what we're doing up there. And I said, Chris, do you know about this? Because there is a bigger plan, which is more than the switchback, and I know he's worked So my screen is just disappearing. Something's weird going on with my tablet. There's a bigger plan with Norfolk that I think involves even a grant, not necessarily from them, but they like the idea, but it's more than the switchback and the crossing. It actually installs fencing, and they like that because then people can't just cross willy-nilly anywhere. They're limited to crossing, so when we have downtown events, parades, and so he didn't seem to be aware this was on here, and I knew that this was only part of a bigger picture. So have y'all communicated on the whole picture of what we want to do there?
I don't think he and Mark Teal have worked on this together at all. So Mark is doing this project.
My recommendation is that we don't do anything on this tonight till those people communicate with one another, because Chris has done quite a bit of work on this, and we may save money in the long run if they talk to one another first.
That's fine with me.
Unless somebody else has some additional information, that's what I was able to gather from him when I looked at this.
No, I mean, look, bottom line is we want to do everything we can to have safe crossings in downtown, and certainly with the railroad, there are a host of things that we have looked at. They're all in the $1 million range. Something like a pedestrian bridge or something like that. We're so far away from being able to do anything like that.
So expensive.
We could look at something like this, but I have no problem putting this off for another month. So make that motion.
Yeah, okay. I make a motion to table till next month.
G4.
The agreement with Norfolk Southern regarding engineering on Highway 78 pedestrian crossing.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mr. Montahan. There was a close one on that end. I don't know who it was, but anyway, all in favor? All right, so we'll
Are we still
table
going to get the
that
flashing
till
lights,
next
though?
month.
The flashing crossing pedestrian? That's what I
Yeah,
was working
don't know
on.
that. I'll talk to Mark.
All right, let's go to G5, which is the schedule for Walden, Ashworth, and Associates. Tom?
All right, so you approved the repair of the Mirror Lake Dam. We got the engineer ready. We got the easements to access the property. And then Georgia Safe Dams, this tells us that we have to engage the design firm to oversee the project, which we didn't know. So Walden did the design for the Mirror Lake HOA back however long ago, and they're available. And so what you have is an hourly fee structure for them. I don't expect that we'll use a lot of their time, but we're going to have to pay them to oversee the remediation, the repair.
All right, you have any questions for Tom on this item, Mr. Carter?
About how much money are we talking about here? I mean, total. No.
Well, I mean, the fee to repair the dam was almost $100,000, the contractor's fee. So we'll be paying these guys by the hour just to provide oversight.
Okay, how much time is involved as far as?
I don't even know. And then on our side, Bobby is overseeing it.
But for Bobby, he's on contract now. Can you do a not to exceed on this? Is there a window that you could?
I wouldn't know what to base it on. I've never repaired a dam before.
Well, I mean,
We got an open-ended account here. That sounds like.
Yeah, but I don't expect it to be significant.
10,000.
I wouldn't think.
So can we do a not to exceed 10,000? That's 10%.
Oh yeah, I
of the
mean
cost of the
you can
repair.
do, if you just want to put a number on here,
Well, I feel better about not just.
do not to exceed $5,000, and then
Okay.
if it turns out to be crazy complicated, then I'll just come back.
That makes sense.
But they're ready to go, right? And we're about to get some work weather.
All right. Is there any other questions? All right, Mr. Carter, you want to take that?
Okay. I move to approve the hourly fee schedule with Walden, Ashford, and Associates for use as they oversee the repair of the Mirror Lake Dam, not to exceed $5,000.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Carter, a second from Mr. Montahan.
That was Miss Marshman, actually. She got me.
All right, from now on, it's whoever I say it is. And that's the way it works. All right. This time it's Miss Marchman. But next time, it's whoever I say it is. All right, all in favor? All opposed? Any abstentions? Did everybody vote? Whew, I don't think she raised her hand till I turned around.
We're almost done.
I didn't see this hand go up.
Come on.
Maybe I do. Okay. All right, Tom. Let's do the city manager's report. Go ahead.
All right. There's really a couple of things that that I think are worth spending a minute talking about. One is we got the consultants together to talk about the indirect potable reuse application, which is this process we're trying to go through so that we can take the discharge from the west plant and pump it into the north end of Cowan Lake. And so we're at the point where we now are able to say that there is a clear next step in what we do, and in what it is going to entail is a 1-year sampling project. So we don't talk about this much for a year, that's what we're going to be doing, is we're going to be sampling for the next year and building a database that we can use as we go through this process. So like the LCI, this is a 10-year deal too. And we're at a similar place as with the LCI.
Did you say why we're doing, just to collect data so it can be compared to the next year? Or
We have to meet conditions, and we can't demonstrate it without a baseline. And you can't just go out there and sample one time and it mean anything. So we're going to have to go out there every month, multiple places, and sample both raw water, treated water, discharge from the sewer plant. I mean, the whole shebang. So that's going to be going on, but it's really significant. This is still the most important strategic project that we're working on, is trying to either find or develop raw water. We still got projects going on that we've talked about. You have approved the reconstruction of the West Plant influent, which is the entry point into the West Plant. So we're going to rebuild that. That's a GFA project. We bid it. This is the one I think I told you about where we bid it, and we only got one bid, and it was twice the estimate, twice. And it turned out that the plan review room that we used put the wrong amount on the plan. So there's a room that you can get plans from if you're a bidder. And they called us and said, "Hey, what's the budget for this?" And we told them, and they left a zero out. And so one person bid. So we had to rebid it, and it's still a lot of money, but it's within our estimate now. So that's going to come to you in April for approval. You also approved a manhole rehab project long time ago, right? And they've been grinding on that, hundreds of manholes. So they're getting near the end of that. And then we've got, I think, 3 lift stations in that project where they've got to go seal the wet well of a lift station. So that'll be coming up next. We have built a couple of things lately that you probably want to go see. So we have established a community development department, finally. So that's Tracy Jarvis and Adam, who you heard from today, with code enforcement, business license, Ron in planning, building maintenance, all that's in one group. And it also includes the two guys that do inspections, but you can see that construction activity is slowed down, right? And so what we're doing is we are taking projects that we would have needed to have outsourced, and we brought them in-house, and we're building things because we got building maintenance guys and inspector guys and guys that have construction experience. So out at Pine Mountain, we built a fire pit right in front of the building. If you haven't seen that, it's really cool. We sold a bunch of packages of s'mores during the holidays. We just built a material bin for Dukes to put rock and all the stuff that he needs for street department right across the street from here. We built a car wash next to the material bin, and what we're doing is we're getting ready to clear out the space behind us. So the corner of Church and Carroll, where we had the trailer and the car wash and all that junk, we're clearing that out. We're going to try to just turn that into an inexpensive parking lot so that we can use it for events. So anyway, so go around, and when you see the guys, tell them what you think about that, because they're doing some great work and at a fraction of what it would have cost for us to contract it. Councilmember McPherson mentioned this earlier, so didn't really talk about the why, but you approved like $90,000 to redo Punkintown. And what we were hoping is that would buy some time to get us to the point where we could do the full depth reclamation. But what happened in the meantime is Astra, who is doing the North Bypass, came to us and said, hey, we're going to have some extra dirt. Do you want it? And I said, yeah, sure. Well, we have land out there. Remember, we bought a piece of property in the middle of the North Bypass, so we could just store it out there till we needed it. But I got to thinking about it, and Fuquay needs dirt, right? Their property just like falls terribly in the back where the townhomes are going to go. So Astra and Fuquay are talking now about taking some of that dirt, but the dirt's going to have to get from the bypass to Fuquay on Punkintown, which is going to destroy Punkintown, right? So Hal gets here, and we're talking about this, and I'm thinking, man, we're going to get McIntosh to come in here and spend $90,000 and fix this thing, and then Fuquay's going to come in here and just completely turn it to rubble. And he said, well, why don't we reach out to Carroll County and just get them to pothole fill it? So y'all have Hal to thank for that $90,000 right there. Does that help? So now we're taking a wait and see to see if Fuquay takes the dirt and what it does to the road, but it's not going to be good. All right, another thing that has come up that that we haven't talked about is we agreed, I think tentatively, on a reorg that included the CVB, DDA, and Main Street boards that met with some significant resistance on the part of the board members. So even though we had made the staff reorg part of the reorg, we never implemented the board part. And so we decided to meet with them. So me and the mayor and David and Sarah met with them and told them what we were thinking and what we were trying to do and asked them for feedback. And one of the members said, well, I think we should just stay where we are. And even though the way that the relationship between the staff and the board is a little bit funky, if we do that, everybody was comfortable with the board they were in. They didn't want to switch functions or boards. And so we went around the room and I don't know if everybody agreed, but nobody disagreed, right? And so the mayor finally said, well, I think we have a decision. Y'all sound like y'all want to just keep it the way it is. You want to add anything to that? I mean, that was sort of the gist of it. And so that was the end of the meeting. So we're just going to let it rock the way it is. So Elise is going to meet with DDA and meet with Main Street. And Janet is going to meet with CVB, but also the committee of Main Street that does events. Right, whatever that is. Right, so it's not real clean, but I mean, it'll work though.
I will say something about it though, because when this came up in October, we had a presence. Some folks showed up here and said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And so we got to what I did then was said, let's wait on this for a minute. Let's see where we're at. And I talked to some of the other council members. Certainly, I talked with Ms. McPherson, and then we let November rock out. We didn't do anything in October, and then we said, let's talk to some more of these board members. Then finally, we said, let's get them all in a room and just see what the consensus is. And the thing that I think I took away from that early on is that we don't have so many volunteers that we can afford to alienate any. And we have some really good volunteers. And what we were trying to do was really utilize the ones who were doing the kinds of jobs that they wanted to do. And we knew really going into it, you weren't going to be able to just flip these boards and everybody suddenly start doing a different task. And so in that room, it became pretty obvious that really what they wanted to do is they wanted us to leave them alone and let them stay where they were. And so we ended that meeting with just that very consensus, that we have enough respect for them and what they do and the work that they're doing. Let's let them do it. And if we got problems on the staff side that we need to work out, whatever it may be, we'll do that. And that shouldn't be on them to have to find a way to accommodate. So that's how that went. And we got some of those folks in the room here tonight. One of them staring me down. But anyway, that was how that came down. So go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, and what I'm getting back from everybody is lots of positives about moving Elisa to Main Street and what that's been like. Janet with the events. Hiring Madison. I mean, y'all saw some of her work tonight. I'm getting good feedback on all that. And Sarah's supervising them, so she's meeting with them every week, and then they're working on communication stuff together. I think our advertising is going to become a lot more effective because they're all working together finally. So I'm happy with all of that. I'm also going to include in this report, I'm not going to go through any of this, but there's all the development stuff is in here. What's almost complete, what's in construction, what's grading and whatever. We don't have a lot of stuff in construction right now, but boy, we still got a lot of stuff that's either grading or engineering and zoning and almost ready to grade. I mean, we still got, I hadn't added it up, but I mean, there's got to be 1,000 residential units in this. Easy. So you'll have all that detail in here. I'll email this to you.
Okay. Any questions for Tom? All right, Mr. Carter.
Okay, somewhere in the past, we said we had applied to EPD for permission to discharge from the West Plant into an upper lake.
Right.
Anything going on with that?
That was that first IPR thing. So that's where we got to do the sampling. That's the next step for that application.
All right.
So we're still the guinea pig in the state. We were the first applicant, and I don't know how many years it's going to take for them to make a decision, but it will be significant.
But it is still kind of moving.
Well, kind of is a strong word.
It's not dead yet, but what we know is that we have at least a 10-year horizon where we need another water contract. So, I mean, there's some clarity, even though we're not exactly tearing it up, but I mean, we're making some progress. It's just dealing with EPD is not how you want to spend your life.
All right, Ms. McPherson.
I almost forgot, but then I experienced it on the way here. Are the railroad crossings, the way they've left them now, the expected final product? Because Connors Road is awful. I mean, it's not as bad as when you went over it and you were like on a ride at a carnival when they were repairing it, but we knew that was temporary. It's bad. Anybody else been drawing?
I don't think
Is
it's
it the only
final
one that's
product.
bad?
Yeah, well, what they've done is they did the preliminary and poured out the first, and now they've come back and done a top coat, but I don't think they're finished with it. I think
That's what I
want to
know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll ask.
But whether they
I went
think
over
they're finished
Jones
or
and
not,
it was okay.
we have a good enough relationship with them. We can reach out to them and say, hey, because it's a contractor that's doing it. It's not even the railroad. It's a third party.
It's a railroad contractor.
So,
But you still have to call a railroad person,
Absolutely.
don't
Yeah,
you,
I
our
still
rep?
talk to Connor, same guy.
but it's different when they're holding their contractor accountable. They don't mind doing that a little more than themselves.
Yeah, and that's only that crossing. I'm sure others can speak to the problems at the others.
They're all at about that same phase.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? Mr. Montahan.
The townhome project that I think is over there off Industrial, is that Starlight, Tom? No, what's that one called?
Pembridge,
Pembridge. Okay.
Rivershire.
Well, I mean, I think I was thinking about whoever.
It's had 2 or 3 names.
Okay. Well, that's the one I'm talking about. The one by Leggett and all
Right,
that over there.
next to the fire station.
How close are they to like final plat and coming out of the ground on that?
They're close.
Okay.
We've got 2 or 3 that are getting ready to do roads. The one next behind Home Depot, and then the one at the end of Connors Road. I think they've done proof rolls on the dirt for their road twice and failed, but everybody's dealing with the rain.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
So you think by the late summer, fall, they'll
I'm
start?
not good at that.
Tracy's gone.
Anybody here that wants to guess at that? No.
There's nobody here to
Al or
guess.
John. I mean, are you even out there to see that? What would you say? In a month, they're going to have a road in?
Or a little longer, 2 months.
Yeah.
That's a guess,
But
I was more or
they're
less
getting close.
Man, the
curious
rain
just
really
about
hurt the guy.
if we would catch up on our permits at all. Because I know every time you look at the Jennifer's report,
Yeah, it's
we're
not
behind
good
the
right now.
previous year in permits, and I just didn't know if we would catch up or not.
Oh, that's
It's very possible.
They
that's
come in
that's
this
a wide
fall or
gap
something?
right now.
Yeah, those
Yeah.
townhome developments could pop.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else? You good? Anybody else? All right. We don't have an executive.
We do not.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
goodness.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right. So Ms. Marchman made a motion to adjourn. Ms. McCoy